This is DRF Race of the Day.
Everybody, Mike Beer here with your DRF Race of the Day for Wednesday, January 5th. We're going down to Gulfstream Park for race number 9. Going to close out that Wednesday card with the DRF Race of the Day, an allowance optional claiming event for turf sprinters. Going to go 5 furlongs on that turf course down there. Of course, as always, you can download free formulator past performances for this Race of the Day on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Here's your field of 9, bookended by the two favorites on the track morning line there. Number 9 on the outside, Artemis City Limits, is a slight early favorite at 7-2. This horse shipping down from New York for trainer Mike Maker, just in really good form. He ran 7 times last year, ran well in every one of those races. The final 4 starts of that campaign came for trainer Mike Maker. He didn't win any of those races. He ran well in all of them. Despite going 0 for 4 for Maker, he did earn, some of the best Beyer speed figures of his career in his final 3 starts, just coming up short each time in those races. But he ran well. He's got good tactical speed from the outside. He's the horse to beat. The slight second choice on the morning line is drawn towards the inside. That's number 1, Quick Tempo. He's 4-1 on the line. This horse has a lot of early speed. So far, he's done his best work on the main track. He's a stakes winner sprinting on the dirt. He's multiple stakes placed on that surface. But he's only run twice on turf so far. He's still relatively lightly raced. He's actually run probably better than it looks, I would say, in both of his 2 turf starts, despite not winning either of those races. And when you just look up his races, he's just a really fast horse. And it feels like he's probably going to make the early lead in here. Along those lines, why don't we take a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector right now and see what they think. And they do have the number 1 Quick Tempo out there on the early lead in this race. It's really hard to argue with if you've seen this horse run. He's very fast. His 2 turf starts, as mentioned, he didn't win either of them. But both times, just, really fast paces. The turf debut came very early on. Second career start as a 2-year-old up at Woodbine in a stakes race. And he just got hooked into a really fast-paced duel that day. Very tired in the stretch in a race that was won from last to first by a huge long shot. With Quick Tempo doing a lot of the dirty work and setting that race up for that big long shot winner. They didn't go back to turf with him for a long time after that. His second turf start came in his most recent race. That came at Keeneland on relatively short rest last October. He, did his thing that day, showed big speed. He got clear on that field early, brought a relatively clear lead into the stretch. You could sort of tell he only wound up losing by a half length. You could sort of tell in the upper stretch of that race that he was already tired. He was not going to make it to the finish, and he didn't. He wound up settling for 3rd that day. Did earn a solid 88 Beyer speed figure for that performance, and it was a pretty good field he was facing too. I thought he ran well. I didn't think he ran great. He's the kind of horse I feel like is really, really dangerous in here just because he's so fast and he does have talent. I just wonder how short a price I'd want to take on a horse like him. As he comes off of a layoff here, and he still does have something to prove as a turf horse. I think it's worth pointing out that Quick Tempo, since that most recent start at Keeneland, he's been listed as a vet scratch. He will make his 4-year-old debut here for trainer Christopher Davis as a new gelding. We'll see if that makes any kind of a difference for him. I think he's a dangerous horse in here. I'm not sure that I would want to bet him at anything like his morning line or anything shorter than that even, because I do think that there are horses in here who are not only, proven quality turf sprinters, but they're actually pretty good horses who maybe you could argue have to get back to some of their better races to strongly contend here. But if they do, they could be really hard for a horse like Quick Tempo to have to deal with. I thought one of those horses was number 2, Ghoul. I would say his recent form, perhaps, isn't his absolute best. He didn't run that well at Saratoga back in July before he got a little bit of a layoff. That was when he was still running out of the Peter Miller barn. His most recent start off of that layoff early in December came for trainer Mark Cassey. Just didn't run well at all that day. As a matter of fact, why don't we throw up the replay of that race right now, because not only was Ghoul in that race, but the Virginian, the number 5 in this race, and the number 7 Citrus Burst, they're both also back in this field. They were all in this December 3rd race. It's going to be the Virginian who winds up making the lead here in deep stretch. He's very game. He's going to get run down at the end. That's Citrus Burst, who was down towards the inside trying to rally, and Citrus Burst wound up settling for 3rd. Ghoul just got tired in the stretch and never really made his presence felt in here. And it was a disappointing performance for Ghoul, because you saw the winner in that replay come from last to win the race. So it's not like, Ghoul with his closing style was badly compromised by the way the race was run. He just didn't fire his best shot, but again, he was off of the layoff. You know he's way better than that. He does have a race in him that would make him really tough in here. If he can show up and run it, if he can get some kind of a setup in front of him here, which it feels like he should have with the speedy, quick tempo in here, and if he can just work out some kind of a clean trip, because with his running style, you always have to worry about stuff like that. He's won 7 times on turf in his career, though, and the red-hot Louis Saez has taken over. He's 10-1 on the line. I wouldn't totally dismiss him. He did not run well last time, and it's a concern, but he can win this race with anything like one of his good performances. Number 3, Dubai Key. I think he's a wild card in here. I wasn't really sure what to do with him. He made his North American debut in his most recent start, mid-November, on the new Tapeta surface here at Gulfstream Park, sprinting this distance 5 furlongs. I don't really know what to say about the effort. He won very easily. He did beat Citrus Burst that day. He earned a solid 88 Beyer speed figure for the effort. He just also had the easiest time in the world making the early lead in there. Got clear. Nobody ever challenged him at any point in the race. He won very easily. Now, if you go back and look at some of his turf form from South America, it's actually pretty good. And this is a horse who, it's worth pointing out, he sprinted on turf twice in the first 2 starts of his career back in early 2020. He won his first start in a 16-horse field by 11 lengths. He won his second start in a 14-horse field by over 5 lengths. They cut him back to 7 furlongs last March down there in Chile. He won again, on the cutback in that race. So he's a very effective horse going shorter. He won very easily at his North American debut last time. He earned a competitive figure for it. I mean, I think there are things to like about this horse. It's hard to say, how good he actually is, because he didn't really have to do anything last time once he made the early lead on a pace that wasn't fast. And it feels like things are going to be very different for him in here. But this horse might actually be very good, and I think he's a real wild card in this race. It'll be very interesting to see what kind of price he goes off at. 2 works since that most recent win back in November, and they're both very fast works as well. So he's a real wild card in this race. I'm not really sure what to do with him in here. Number 4, Mystery Messenger, has races in common from New York with the morning line favorite Artemis City Limits, and he held his own with that horse in both of those races at Belmont Park last year. This is a horse who has, another one. He has plenty of back races to be tough in this race. He's a little bit more of a lower level claiming type. But he shows up and he runs every time. Most recently, they tried the Claiming Crown with him. It didn't really work out, and he was never a real factor in that race. But his form leading into that race was good. He's 3rd off the layoff now for Fernando Abreu, and he's not a horse that I would totally dismiss. This is not necessarily an easy spot for him, though. We talked about the Virginian already. We just saw his most recent win back on December 3rd, where he beat Citrus Burst and Ghoul. He wound up finishing second that day. I thought he ran fine. He got a really good trip overall, made the lead there in deep stretch and really couldn't hold on. I didn't really see his excuse not to win, but he did earn a new top Beyer speed figure of 90 for that performance. He does have tactical speed. Javier Castellano will take over. There are things to like about him. I preferred other horses in here. But this is a horse who, tends to be very consistent. He has very good tactical speed, and he just might, and he's run very well in actually the last 3 starts. So I think there are things to like about the Virginian. I wanted other horses in here, especially if the morning line holds, but he could certainly win this race. Like what I see is number 6. He's 10-1 on the line for trainer Kelly Breen. Feels like he's going to need a career best performance to win here. Let's take a look at his most recent start. This is middle of December, the 15th, here at Gulfstream, over course and distance against a weaker field. And this is like what I see, just making a very easy early lead in this race. No challenges for this horse early. You see him driving into the stretch as the favorite, the 6-5 favorite, Kasim, comes up to the outside to take him on. But like what I see, just has plenty left in this race. He's going to turn that favorite away, keep clear right down to the finish, and he's much the best at the end with an 83 Beyer speed figure, which matches his career best. He's run that figure a couple of times in the past. He ran it again in that victory. I thought he ran well. He can't make the lead in here, with quick tempo down on the inside in here. It feels like it's going to be a much tougher situation for like what I see in here. But he's a price for a very good trainer if you like him. Citrus Burst, we touched on too. He had some races in common there with Dubai Key, 2 back on the Tapeta surface, and then most recently where he just couldn't get to the Virginian, and they both got out finished by that last to first closer. I thought he ran okay. He certainly got good trips in those races and just wasn't quite good enough. He wasn't for me necessarily in this race, but it just feels like they're probably going to sit somewhere off the pace with him, hope that quick tempo goes fast, and try to close this thing down at the end. Elusive Mischief, I thought if I was going to go for one of the bigger prices in the race, I would probably try Elusive Mischief, who's 15-1 on the line for trainer Ian Wilkes, just because this horse has really kept some really good company. He's very versatile. He can handle any kind of a surface. He is a winner on all three surfaces so far in his career. He just tends to show up and basically run every time. He's clearly no superstar, but he's kept good. He's kept a lot of stakes company. He's, you look through his running lines horses that he's been facing, like Boldor and Just Might and Fast Boat, Karatari, Texas Wedge. I mean, this horse has really been in some pretty tough situations, and it's not like he's run poorly in all of those races. I feel like he's probably in a little bit tough here once again, but I just feel like he's facing some better horses along the way. He's not really being embarrassed by those horses. He's another horse who I think has enough tactical speed to fall into a trip in this race. And if he's going to be one of the longer prices on the board, I would just use him somewhere. Not that I can say that I love him in this race, but I certainly don't feel like he's in over his head by any stretch of the imagination. Artemis City Limits is the horse to beat on the outside. He did win twice last year, both of those races going 6 furlongs on turf at Belmont Park, and they were both versus sort of lower level claiming rivals winning those races. But I just like the way that he won both times. I thought he was really game winning both of those races, and since then, again, he's 0 for 4 since Maker's taken over, but I just think he's run well in every one of those races. His most recent start at Aqueduct in December, also going 6 furlongs. That was a good performance. He did make a clear lead in the stretch, and he was unable to hold it, getting run down at the end, but he got run down by the very underrated Scuttlebuzz. Just a really good closing sprinter on the turf. Artemis City Limits was favored that day. Couldn't hold that horse off and settled for second while earning a career best 92 buy, but I thought he ran well again. He's just in really good form. He's got good tactical speed. He's not going to be compromised by the way the race was run. I guess you could look at him and say, is 5 furlongs going to wind up being a little short for him? All of his races last year between 6 and 7 furlongs. I guess that is something to concern yourself with, especially if he's a short price again. I just feel like it's not supposed to bother him. He's got really good tactical speed. The only time that he went less than 6 furlongs prior to this in his career, and it was a race that was rained off the turf at Churchill Downs, he won very easily that day with a 91 buyer. I'm not going to worry about the distance for him. I just think Artemis City Limits is probably the horse to beat in here. And I just really couldn't talk myself into anybody else that I wanted from a wagering perspective, mostly because if I was going to try to beat him, I might try to do it with, either the number 2 Ghoul, whose last race I just really did not like, and I'm not sure that I want to take him off of that, or the 8 Elusive Mischief, who I just couldn't talk myself into. So for the Wednesday race today, I'm going to put the favorite Artemis City Limits on top. I went 9, 8, 3, and 2, but it's a fairly interesting and competitive matchup here. Field of 9 for your Wednesday race of the day. It's the 9th at Gulfstream Park. Approximate post time is 4:36 Eastern Time. Good luck.